I'm King Link, and it's time for the Humble Choice July 2021 review. And once again, I'm back after playing each game for an hour, and I should be able to tell you who's going to enjoy each title and who may want to skip them. It's a strange month, so let's just get to the games and talk about them, and we'll be starting with a major franchise. Yakuza 3 Remastered. Now, if you've been a Humble Choice member for a while, you've probably already seen Yakuza 0, Kiwami, and Kiwami 2, which was the first trilogy of Yakuza games for PC. It appears that this trend is continuing with Yakuza 3 Remastered this time. I'm a huge Yakuza fan. I love the series so much. I actually have a great video on the entire franchise just talking about it. Shameless plug for that video. And I'm glad that more people are going to be playing it. But at the same time, this is just Yakuza 3, not the entire remastered series, and very quickly it goes for $20 normally, $13 on Steam sale, and there's actually a bonus deal, get all 3 remastered for $40 or $26 during the sale, so it's not really an expensive game. Yakuza 3 is also the weakest of the entire franchise. Now, some people say it's aged poorly, some people don't like the story. I think Yakuza 3's combat and difficulty are a huge problem, and it's also the 4th game of the series after Yakuza 0 and the Kiwamis. If you haven't played those, you need to before you tackle this one because it's a linear story and there's major spoilers here. So pick this up if you're going to go the entire distance with the Yakuza series, which I do recommend. It's a fantastic series and I adored every minute of the story. However, if you don't like the Yakuza series before this point, this one just is not going to be for you. This also isn't a good place to start the series because, you're in the middle of a major story. Also, I would recommend playing on easy difficulty just to try to minimize that combat as much as you can, just my opinion. The Surge 2. This is a Dark Souls title with a science fiction slant and some new twists to the formula. While the original title in the series was a bit rough if I'm being generous, this feels like a great new addition with a more fluid battle system and a great loot system as well. A big piece of the Surge 2 is that players can cut parts of the enemies off in a brutal fashion and then collect them for their own inventory or research. Players can target different parts of enemies' bodies, both armored and unarmored, for different effects, and there's actually a solid directional blocking mechanic that adds a lot to the title. But make no mistake, this is still a Souls game, so expect a challenging experience and a decent difficulty. Also, the level design looks really good, the story seems to be interesting, though I didn't really get too much of that in that first hour. Pick this up if you enjoy Dark Souls or Bloodborne style games, but if you're tired of that genre or have never really gotten into them, The Surge 2 is probably not for you. It's very clear what genre this game belongs to, and they do deliver on it. Dirt 5. Dirt racing is back again. This series is kind of all over the place. Well, there is the very realistic Dirt Rally series with that impressive simulation. The numbered series is kind of just made for fun, and Dirt 5 seems to continue with that and just run with the idea as far as it can, becoming the most arcadey game it can be. If you're looking for a real rally game, well, this probably isn't it. The physics are weak, the challenge in the game is like non-existent, even on higher difficulties, and the racing feels pretty much as arcade-driven as it can be. At the same time, I did enjoy myself because it just became stupid fun. If you want a racing game that you can just pick up and play for a while, or you just want to try out rally racing without too much difficulty, this might be a good starting point. But it also lacks the depth the series has shown in almost every other title it's had. Pick this up if you want to race around the track a few times and earn a few rewards without too much challenge. If you hate racing or only want simulation racing, you're not going to find it here. I wish this was better, but it is what it is. Hammerting. I don't know how to review this game. It's an early access game that involves dwarves mining for ore and then trading with different factions. This sounds like a simple but fun game. The problem is, it's early access. If I review this like a normal game, it's kind of a pointless and limited experience with a weak tutorial and very little to do once the game starts. After about 30 minutes, I felt like I had run out of specific things I wanted to do, and after an hour, I was trying to find a reason to complete the task the game gave to me. So while the game isn't great today, there is a lot of promises by the dev, and it may turn out to be a top tier game in maybe 6 months to a year. I have no clue. It's not really clear when they're planning to be done with it, though they are actively developing it. The last patch was released on June 30th. Pick this up if you want a major gamble. This could become something great, but I've been burned enough by early access that I tend to avoid it, and I recommend others do as well. And this game is really early in development, and I think that's a problem. I think it probably should not have been included in Humble Choice, and maybe this all is a red flag for the development future of the game. Nimbatus, the Space Drone Construction. This is a creative game where players can create and pilot drones to complete different tasks. Add in an FTL-style race across the galaxy and a series of missions where players will be tasked to do different things, and you have a really interesting game. The game starts with the players trying to create and try out different drones to complete various tasks. There's a lot of different ways players can build the drones, and of course a few ways that will just break them apart, but there seems to be a lot of potential in the design aspects of the game. There's also a threatening enemy that's going to be constantly chasing the player's ship and trying to damage them, as well as a couple of resources that players will need to balance to pay for repairs and upgrades. There's also multiple starting classes with unique loadouts, gears, and abilities. I'm particularly tempted to return to try out the Programmer class, which requires autonomous drones, meaning the player isn't going to manually control them. Pick this up if you like the idea of creating drones and completing missions. It's going to help if you're a fan of roguelites, because I think there is a big one here, but it might not fully be necessary. There is quite a bit of replayability here. If you want to skip the design phase, you're probably going to have some issues, as a big part of this game appears to be building your drone fleet for your current task and then taking it out and piloting them. Paradise Killer. An open-world detective story where players have to explore an island paradise and figure out who murdered the Central Council, the governing body of this land. Unlike most open-world games, Paradise Killer seems to live up to the idea, allowing players to go wherever they want, whenever they want. The story and writing are interesting as well, with the strange world being at the core of this place, one that gets recreated every couple hundred years apparently. Your main character has been in exile for 3 million days, and yeah, this sounds strange, but somehow Paradise Killer was able to pull me into this narrative with frightening ease. The world is vast and has a lot of collectibles to discover as well. The graphics are good, the locations feel interesting, and just walking around was entertaining. Actually, there's a lot to explore here as well. I found half of my hour of play involved me getting sidetracked and constantly going, oh, I wonder what's over there. Oh, what's over there? Pick this up if you like indie games, though. It has a great stylized look, interesting writing, and I'm planning on playing the entire game after finishing this review. On the other hand, this is a mix between a visual novel and a detective story. It's great, but there's going to be no action, and while the open world aspects are fantastic, it's all exploration based. Kill It With Fire. Spiders everywhere. This doesn't look like a horror game, but it sure plays like one. I'm not arachnophobic, but this game had me jumping early on, and there's no way to die or no chance of really failing, but man, it still got me. So if you hate spiders, this is probably not for you. At the same time, Kill It With Fire is oddly fun, and there's a lot of different weapons and items, collectibles, secrets, locations to explore, all that stuff. Players can move almost anything, and there are multiple different quests per level, only a couple are related to the actual spiders themselves. I found myself enjoying this game as time went on. The push to find everything, complete everything, and kill more spiders was enjoyable, and once I got my hairspray flamethrower right after this video, I no longer was scared of the spiders and was having fun wrecking the house. Pick this up if you want a dumb fun game. I think they actually could have gone more in the direction of scoring how much destruction you did while destroying the house. I also appreciate the arachnophobia settings, but at the end of the day, you're killing insects, namely spiders, so if that's going to skeeve you out, this is not going to be for you, even with those settings. Truthfully, it's probably the reason I'm not going to return. I was never one for horror games or even pseudo-horror games. Bee Simulator. Something Jerry Seinfeld. I'm sure I'm not the only one who thought about the Bee movie when they heard of this title, right? Bee Simulator is a story-based open-world game where players explore a large map as a bee, and it looks like it could be similar to Goat Simulator, but it's more story-based with players being tasked with various missions from the hive. This is also almost edutainment. There's a heavy focus on bee information, and the game is quite clever. There's even subtle pieces where they point to the fact that the main character is female because she's leaving the hive. The queen actually communicates while releasing odors and pheromones, and bees will dance to communicate. Someone has clearly done their homework. The story and missions are decent, and the gameplay is good. There's actually a lot of discovering and collecting if players want to see everything, but the main story here is about 2 hours long, and there's the fact that this probably shouldn't be called a simulator, it's just a typical game with mission structure and all. Pick this up if you want a game where you play as a bee or you want to learn more about these tiny insects. Some of these systems are a bit clunky, and I found myself needing to use the D-pad at times instead of the control stick, as well as ending on a rather hard race, but I did find myself wanting to return to see more of this world. Elderborn. I struggle to find something to talk about with this game. It's a dated looking game that's trying to be a bit like Dark Souls but has nowhere near the size of team or skill to pull it off. The combat here is repetitive, the levels are average, the music is okay, the graphics honestly are not great, but there's nothing that's that bad either. This is a remarkably average game that is trying to do what the big guys do, and suffers due to not being able to bring much new to the table. There was some enjoyment when kicking enemies off of ledges, but that got boring after a few minutes. So maybe it's me, but when a game constantly refers to other better games in the achievements, has gameplay like Souls-like games, combat that is mostly spamming attacks or timing blocks against the same enemy attacks, this all just kind of lets me down. Pick this up if you need a first-person melee game, but I'd probably look into something else instead. I'd also probably recommend Kingdom Come Deliverance over this title. S.W.I.N.E HD Remaster. This is a 2001 real-time strategy game that still feels like a 2001 real-time strategy game. It's also really strange as this game originally was made by a Hungarian company and now remastered by another Hungarian company, but these are some of the most atrocious, almost offensive French accents in the game. The gameplay here skips the usual base building and instead just has players control multiple units and fight enemy units. While each unit has a special ability that's explained in the tutorial, I wasn't able to get a couple of them to trigger correctly in the main campaign. Also, S.W.I.N.E is either very hard or quite annoying. On the first mission for the pigs, which probably is the harder of the two campaigns, I had a hit and run from enemies to recover defense and ammo and needed to use saves quite a bit. It wasn't really an enjoyable experience, but if someone was looking for a very hard RTS, S.W.I.N.E might deliver. Pick this up if you love the RTS genre or want to see what games were like in 2001. While it is a remaster, the game still has all the pieces of the original game, including pretty terrible videos between missions. I'd honestly be happy to leave S.W.I.N.E in 2001. Deadly Days, a roguelite survival horror game, and I'm honestly a little shocked I can't think of another title that has done that before. Players equip their characters, send them on runs where they have to fight back zombies, hunt for well-marked loot, and try to stop the plague. The gameplay here is that top-down worker placement game, but it works well here. Players have to move their character around the small map, hunting for loot while trying to manage the zombies and fighting against that undead horde. The only real negative is the tutorial gives you way too much power, so you're going to be very underwhelmed at much of what you're going to be finding while you're exploring the real game. Still, there is a fun and challenging part of the game where I found myself constantly having to make snap decisions to forego certain objectives to ensure the survival of my characters, even early in the run, like on day 2 or 3. Pick this up if you like what you're seeing. It's a surprisingly unique idea, but it is a zombie game with the escalating hordes of zombies, so it's pretty much only what you're going to be seeing here. ADOM, which stands for the Ancient Domains of Mystery. This is perhaps the first time I'm talking about a true roguelike. ADOM was released in 1994 and it's one of the original roguelikes and one of the best of all time. I could probably spend an hour telling you why it's good. And this version is called a deluxe version, which has more graphical modes beyond just the standard ASCII, new mouse control, multiple difficulty options, customizations, as well as, of course, Steam achievements. It has all the great gameplay that a roguelike should, a ton of classes, races, and possibilities, as well as so many different and unique interactions that you'll be able to experience. It's also frighteningly difficult. Roguelikes are not intended for one-and-done playthroughs, but rather take a lot of constant effort to learn everything that you can about the game in the hope that a player can one day take one of their many characters through the entire game. So pick up ADOM if you love true roguelikes or want a very hard but interesting game. I'm an absolute fan, but I will say that most people probably won't enjoy this game. It's a style of game that's not very popular and perhaps it never was. It's focusing on a far more strategic style of play, which is why I usually talk about the difference in roguelikes and roguelites often, usually especially the turn-based systems. I'd probably not recommend ADOM to most people, even though I am a huge fan of it, but if you like Rogue, NetHack, or Dwarf Fortress, it's worth a try. You can actually even play the free version of it, which includes the entire game as well as some of the improvements at ADOM's website. I'll put a link down in the description. It's worth a try. CreatorCube. I'm not sure of the best description of CreatorCube. It's a bit like a roguelite Metroidvania action platformer with some interesting ideas thrown in. Players have to work their way through a space station as an escaped robot cube, and that cube can actually grab and consume items and then recreate new items from the blueprints of what they eat, including guns, furniture, and even human bodies. In the first 20 minutes, I wasn't really sure what to make of this game, as the tutorial makes it sound like a physics puzzler, but over time I was actually able to see some of the more interesting parts of the game, and by the end of the hour I was excited to play more. I think anyone who picks up the bundle should probably give this game a shot. It feels like an interesting mixture of so many different genres, but they seem to mesh together well after a while. So after all those games, what about the bundle as a whole? Well, there's kind of an elephant in the room. There's actually a lot of issues with the number of games here. I already mentioned that Yakuza 3 is only $20 normally and was on sale for $13. Okay. The Surge 2, though, usually goes for pretty cheap. I actually bought it myself before this bundle, and is currently on sale at Fanatical in a Platinum deal where it's 3 games for $9 up to 7 games for $20. Seriously? And that Platinum deal is actually going on for all of July. S.W.I.N.E and Kill It With Fire were actually in previous versions of that Platinum deal over on Fanatical, and Deadly Days was actually in a humble bundle, weekly bundle for $1. At least nothing has been given away on Epic yet. What's worse though is that there's really nothing that I think stands out this month. There's equally nothing terrible, but it's a very average month, which is a shame because I think it's far easier to tell people that X game is must get, or you must avoid this game. But you'll likely find something that you'll enjoy, just it might not be worth the full price of the bundle. I will at least applaud that there is no multiplayer only game, so single player fans can try out everything, but games like Hammerting, where it's such early access, still boggle my mind. Again, if they gave 10 titles with a higher focus on quality, I probably wouldn't object. So speaking of that, let's get to the weakest and the strongest of this month. And I'm even going to admit, my favorite game this month is on neither list. I still love ADOM, that ancient domains of mystery. I think it's great. I think everyone should give it a shot, especially with that free version on the website. But I'm also going to be a realist. It's probably on the weaker side of the choices this month because it's going to appeal to a very select group of people. But if you love roguelites, definitely check out a true roguelike. Alright, plug for that game is done. Let's see the real list. And the third weakest this month is Elderborn. I'm sure some people will enjoy this game, but it's a very weak version of Dark Souls that does nothing special. It does try to tackle first-person melee combat, but it also doesn't feel great with it. The second weakest of the month, Hammerting. I still don't know how to evaluate this game, but even in its best light, it's a wait of 6 months or more where you hope the developer delivers on making a great game. I really hope I'm wrong, but it's not even good right now, and that's what we should be evaluating this on. And the weakest of the month is S.W.I.N.E HD Remaster. This was a rough game in 2001, it's a rougher game today, and while remastering it helps probably a bit, it's not great, and well, you can see from the video, it still looks ancient at times. And that was the weakest of the month, so let's turn around and look at the strongest. The fifth strongest this month is Dirt 5. It's not the best Dirt game, but it's not a bad game. It just feels more like a starter racing game. Still, I had fun and probably would boot it up again because I'm a sucker for bumper cars. I'm sorry. Serious professional racing. I still get those mixed up. The fourth strongest this month, Nimbatus, the Space Drone Constructor. This is a great mix of FTL and a drone creation program. I'm actually looking forward to seeing some of the later levels and seeing what I can program or get Nimbatus to do once the game gets going. The third strongest this month, Yakuza 3 Remastered. It's still a 40-hour or more game. Yes, it is the weakest of the series. It's a game completely made for people who have played the previous titles, and that's actually the real reason it's this low on the list. It's just a little weak, but it is still a very substantial title. The second strongest this month, Paradise Killer. It's the game that I'm looking forward to playing more of. It has a ton of style and substance. There's well-written dialogue, interesting characters in a world I want to explore more. Apparently it will take like 10 hours to beat. I even think it could be number one under the right circumstances. And that brings us to the strongest of the month, The Surge 2. This is a well-done game that has me interested in playing more as well. It looks and feels unique, has interesting gameplay, and a lot of good improvements on a familiar formula. If you like Dark Souls, you really should check out The Surge 2 as well. So that's what I have for this month's humble choice. If you've made it this far in the video, thanks for going the distance. Consider subscribing to the channel, or maybe throwing a like or leave a comment on this video. Let me know what you think of the bundle. It does feel like a different type of bundle this month, and I'd love to hear your opinion on it as well. In June I actually put out a video all about the Yakuza series, which struggled enough to rattle my faith in this channel. But if you're interested in hearing about the Yakuza series, even as a new player, I'd recommend that video, and it's relevant with Yakuza 3 in the bundle this month, that's why I'm mentioning it. I'll also put up a second video as well. Until then, I'm King Link, and thanks for watching.